We'd like to start by extending our gratitude to our guests from across the university, as well as leaders from the business, philanthropic, and government communities for taking the time to join us today. We'd also like to thank our table sponsors, including Tata Consultancy Services, our friends and colleagues from the University of Arizona Foundation, Casa Martinez, Pat Engels and Walter Lieberman, the current and immediate past presidents of the National Board of Advisors, and Warren Westin, a longtime board advisor who helped establish this award and has been a generous supporter for many years. We'd also like to acknowledge the students who are joining us today, both from the Eller College of Management and from the Fashion and Retail programs from the North School. There are really reasons that we've all come together as a university and are here today. Finally, we're grateful to the Eller College's National Board of Advisors, many of whom are here and with us today, for their continued commitment to the college and for creating this award. The board also includes our own Stevie Eller, whose continued support and seemingly boundless energy continues to inspire us. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the Dean of the Eller College of Management and Valley Chair in Leadership, Dean Carter Cannon, who will share some of the many exciting highlights from the college.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to everyone who has joined us today for this special occasion. It's wonderful to see such strong support from university, business, and community partners. I'd like to extend my congratulations and my sincere appreciation to Michelle Das for being with us as the 2026 University of Arizona Executive of the Year. Before we continue with the program, I'd like to take a moment to share a few highlights from the Eller College of Management as we continue our mission to prepare the next generation of business leaders and respond to the evolving needs of industry. We are proud to remain among the top 25 undergraduate business programs among the public university peers, with several of our individual programs earning national recognition. Notably, our Management Information Systems Department and program recently surpassed MIT to become the #2 ranked program in the country. To be a little bit, to give some historic context, we formalized MIS as an academic discipline 51 years ago, long before most of the world understood why it mattered. Our AI lab has been operating for the last 37 years. Our faculty were taking these technologies seriously when they were still considered a niche. At this college, we've always believed that the most important work is the work that seems premature until it suddenly becomes essential. Our Eller Partnerships Office continues to expand opportunities for students to engage in real-world projects, providing valuable hands-on experience while also supporting our industry partners with insight and key expertise from faculty members and students. Looking ahead, we are excited at the launch of Integrated Business Engineering as a new program this coming fall. It is run in collaboration with College of Engineering. This innovative program is designed to meet the growing demand for professionals who combine technical expertise with strong business acumen. No matter the discipline or program, we believe in excellence exemplified by our students, which is why we interview every single upper division student for admission, every single one. Because we believe character and drive belong on the same page as academic achievement. When our students told us that they want to compete on Wall Street, a word that has long been reserved for Ivy League students, we helped them build a pathway. Today, we place about 15 to 20 students each year and have built a robust network of alumni who give back to the next generation of Eller students and graduates. All of this reflects the momentum at Eller. We are proud of what we've accomplished and excited about what lies ahead. It's truly a great time to be connected to the college as an alum, as a partner, or as a member of the broader business community here. At this time, it is my honor to welcome to the podium Doug Goodyear, the chair of the Arizona Board of Regents.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you everyone for having me. I'll keep my remarks brief. I had the good fortune to actually know Carl Eller. His grandchildren and my children were best friends and went to school together. And as a result, we would see Stevie and Carl at school events, baseball games, all that. And we got to know the Eller family very well. And it is a privilege for me to be here at the school named after him. He was a superb businessman, very hard-headed, very clear-eyed, made decisions easily, but importantly, he believed in things bigger than himself. So he was a genuine patriot. He loved his country. He was a true blue Arizonan. He loved his state more than you could ever imagine. And he was a big believer in giving back to the community, hence his support for schools like the University of Arizona and the Eller School of Management. So, Stevie, it's good to see you, and thank you for all that you do. So when the Eller School bestows an honor like Executive of the Year, as it is to Michelle, it's actually a pretty big deal. So congratulations to you. And we, on behalf of the Regents, I just want to say a couple things. Right now, it's so easy to, we like to compare things, okay? Is LeBron the greatest of all time? Is Michael Jordan the greatest of all time? Comparing people from different eras is hard because the circumstances are different, the competition is different. I would argue that today, being the CEO of a business organization is harder now than it has perhaps ever been. The pace of change, the nature of society today, everybody knowing how to do your job better than you can do it yourself, and not being bashful about expressing it. These all make being in a leadership role a very difficult thing. The fact that you are being awarded with this award today speaks very highly for all that you've accomplished and that you've navigated these difficulties very, very well. So, on behalf of the board, I just want to say thank you to everyone in this room. Thank you for your support of the Eller School, for your support of the University of Arizona. Everybody who's taken time out of your calendar today, we are grateful for your commitment, and we think that the best is yet to come with both U of A and the Eller School, and we are grateful for your engagement and your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Goodyear, for joining us at this very special event. The University of Arizona Executive of the Year Award was established in 1983 by the Eller College of Management's National Board of Advisors to recognize individuals who exemplify outstanding leadership in both private enterprise and in public service. Over the years, this honor has been awarded to an exceptional group of leaders from some of the nation's most influential organizations, including Jamie Dimon, Howard Schultz, and Janet Napolitano. and leaders who not only have accomplished careers, but also strong ties to the Eller College, including Robert Eckert of Mattel and Terry Lundgren of Macy's, and our own Kent McClellan from Shamrock Farms Food Company. Today, we're proud to celebrate our 40th Executive of the Year, Michelle Gass, President and Chief Executive Officer of Levi Strauss Co. Michelle has spent 35 years proving that great leadership is not a single moment. It is a sustained commitment to transformation, earned through grit, vision, and an uncommon willingness to do the hard work. Before joining Levi Strauss & Company, she served as CEO of Kohl's, where she built a multi-billion-dollar e-commerce business, forged innovative partnerships with Sephora and Amazon, and modernized a legacy retailer into a true omnichannel powerhouse. She didn't inherit an easy road, she built a new one. She joined Levi's in 2023, and within a year, the board appointed her CEO. Under her leadership, Levi Strauss & Company is being transformed into a best-in-class, direct-to-consumer denim lifestyle brand, one that honors more than 170 years of iconic heritage. It's beloved worldwide, and Michelle is ensuring it remains not just relevant, but essential. What is most striking, though, is not just the business results alone. In her deep commitment to sustainability, social responsibility, and the kind of workplace culture that brings out the best in people, that is a leader who understands that lasting success is built on trust with customers, with employees, and with the broader world. In her own words, any success I've experienced has been shaped by the collective talent, heart, and dedication of those around me. That humility combined with the level of accomplishment is exactly what this award was created to honor. At this time, I'd like to invite Dean Karthik Cannon back to the podium to present Michelle Gass with the 2026 University of Arizona Executive of the Year Award.
Michelle, it's truly an honor to have you here today. On behalf of the Eller College of Management and the University of Arizona, congratulations on a distinguished and impactful career. In addition to this award, we are proud to recognize your accomplishment with this special sculpture created by renowned artist, Deborah Fellows, whose work is featured in leading galleries across the country. This bronze piece was selected and generously donated to us by the longtime Eller National Board of Advisor member, former University of Arizona basketball player, and student body president, Warren Preston. Warren shared that the sculpture, titled Keeping the Faith, is especially fitting. It depicts a cowboy wearing a Levi's and holding the branding iron mark USA, a powerful tribute to the heritage of the American West and the enduring legacy of the Levi Strauss brand. Michelle, congratulations once again. Please join me on the stage to accept this award. We're not going to be lifting this award, so we're going to give this one instead. So you got to figure out how to carry this. Yes. Michelle, if you. And now I'd like to invite Linda Bixby, Chief Research Partnership Officer at Research and Partnerships, to join us on stage for a conversation with Michelle.
Thank you. I am just blown away and so honored that sculpture will proudly sit in my office in our headquarters. So just so grateful. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you so much for being with us today. I also want to thank everybody in the audience. As was mentioned, we have so many students and here in our audience today, and they are anxious and excited to get to know you. And this is why I have the privilege of having a conversation and hearing about you and also about your career. As we begin, I would just like to say how much I admire the career path you have taken and also for your leadership role in Levi Strauss. Just to let you know a little bit about myself, I'm a 5th generation Arizonan, and I come from the ranching business.
I love that. A lot of Levi's, I'm sure.
I am confident, and I know for sure that even my great-grandfather wore Levi's, and even today my 14-year-old grandson wears Levi's. And so, I mean, you have really, your organization has really made a great impact throughout generations. But I would like to really hear more about your career. So I just have a couple of questions and really want this to be a conversation. In talking to some of the students in the audience and asking them, what have you been doing with your career? And they started talking about, well, I want to take this path, I want to take this path. I actually don't know what path to take. So to start out with, can you walk us through your career path and some of the twists and turns that you've taken throughout your career?
You bet. And I will say again, this is an extraordinary honor and privilege to get this award. Quite candidly, I didn't know much about the university. Our chair of the board at Levi's is an alum here and sits on the board, and I think I'm arm wrestling to be the top of his fan club because I learned Bob Eckert has a lot of fans in this room, and just having this experience the last couple of days, I'm walking away with such a deeper appreciation of the university and how it really distinguishes itself in the world of universities. And it's very relevant for me. It hits close to home to have had the chance to talk to students even this morning. I've got 2 kids, one is 26, one is 23. My 26-year-old is back in graduate school, so sort of being around, and just so there's no mystery, Notre Dame for my daughter and University of Wisconsin-Madison for my son, both big football schools, big time in sports, so it's just great to be here on campus and connect with all the students. So to your question, so how did I get here? I ask myself that sometimes. But to the question of like where to go, what's the path? I mean, the good news for students, you don't have to have it all figured out. And I certainly didn't when I was sitting, in environments and listening to speakers like myself many, many years ago, 35 years ago. The way I would describe my path has been much more like a jungle gym than it's been a ladder. And I think it has really shaped who I am today, both personally and professionally, because I've had the benefit to have all these incredibly rich, experiences that, like I said, were not necessarily linear. So to back up, I grew up in a small town in Maine, Lewiston, Maine. The weather is very different up there than it is here. So see my fair share of cold weather and winters and what have you. Grew up from a blue-collar, hard-working, gritty family. I worked for as long as I can remember, babysitting, bagging groceries, waitressing, you name it, I did it. Because I had to kind of, get my own path to go to college. And I was fortunate to get a scholarship. I went to Worcester Polytechnic Institute. My undergrad was in chemical engineering, believe it or not, which even makes the story less linear because I'm in fashion now. But I really pursued chemical engineering because I knew it would set me up to open doors. I didn't know where that would be. As a woman back in those days, in the 80s, being good in math would also be an asset, and it certainly did open lots of doors. So my first job out of college was at Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati, which is a phenomenal foundation when you're just coming out of college, and I feel like that was my first master's I got in business there. I ended up in brand management there, was there 6 years, meet my husband in Ohio. He has a job opportunity taking us to the West Coast, so I actually left P&G without a job. Very uncharacteristic of someone like myself, but I sort of figured engineering degree, P&G, my mom was very nervous, even cried a little, my mom would be fine. I'm sure there are jobs in Seattle. So turned out there was, a big one. As I sometimes joke, I'm like, Mom, it really turned out okay, But it was there where I was finishing my MBA at University of Washington in a part-time program, but land in Seattle, meet someone from Starbucks. This is 1996. I mean, we're going way back. And when I joined, there were less than 1,000 stores. Fast forward, I mean, that really was called my master's or PhD. I was there for 17 years. And by the time I left in 2013, there were over 20,000 stores. So little did I know that I was joining, you know, one of the most iconic and successful business stories of our time. I did lots there. I'm sure you'll ask me questions about things, but I got to grow up with the company, got to have amazing mentors like Howard Schultz that was just mentioned, Howard Behar, many others. Olden Lee, who's in the house and is an alum. Where's Olden? There he is. That you're here today, and I haven't seen Olden for probably at least over a decade, not more, but so surrounded by amazing people, which over time went from my first job as the manager of Frappuccino, it just launched, to ultimately being president of Europe, Middle East, Africa, based out of London. And then somewhere in there in that last year, I had the opportunity to pivot and go into big box retail. And it was scary after being somewhere for almost 20 years, but at the time I was on a fashion board. I loved clothes. I loved clothes as much as coffee. So anyway, and fashion and apparel, it was an opportunity to learn something new. And I ended up at, you know, Kohl's department stores, close to a $20 billion retailer, but it needed a lot of reinvention. I felt like everything I learned at Starbucks from innovation and culture and values, how could I bring it to a place that needed to get modernized? So I was there for a decade, the last 5 as CEO, some really interesting times there as well, including navigating the global pandemic as CEO of a big company that had 80,000 employees, so that was very defining in my leadership journey. And then fast forward, so Levi's is one of the biggest brands inside Kohl's, and Kohl's is one of the biggest retailers for Levi's. So I got to know the then CEO, Chip Bergh, over a decade. And when he was ready to retire, he picked up the phone and he called me. And it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I love the brand, it's a huge privilege, and I do feel like everything I've done over my lifetime career has led me to this moment.
Well, I just think that that's incredible. The term you use, jungle gym, I hope the students are listening to this, is that you don't have to already figure it out. Just take those one steps at a time and then just see where your career leads. And I don't think any of us, or you could have even anticipated where you were today.
Never in a million years. You know, I mean, I grew up in a small town in Maine. I didn't even know these kind of jobs existed, right? My whole family had been in the service industry, what have you. So yeah, I think it's about being open. And at times, even if that means take a lateral move, you know, take a step back to learn something new. I mean, one of the, you know, the last few years, I think is an example for me where, so here I was sitting CEO of a, you know, close to $20 billion operation, and Chip Bergh, my work colleague running Levi's, you know, he decides he's gonna retire after he'd had about a 12-year run. And, but the company wanted to make sure that there was continuity, and so he asked if I'd be willing to work alongside with him as president for a year of transition. Now that doesn't happen very often when you have a sitting CEO kind of go into some people said, oh, she's taking a step back, but I didn't view it that way at all. I'm like, what an amazing opportunity to have a whole year to work with him, to get to know the people and travel the world and see our markets. And so then when it's time, we have a very seamless transition. And I was able to have a running start on the strategy and decisions and all of that, and importantly get to know the people and the culture. So I just encourage people, like, you know, there are moments in your career where, first of all, yes, take the advice of mentors. I also believe that a lot of times people see things in you before you realize it yourself. So you might get a little nervous in that feeling in your stomach, but lean in. And even if it's unconventional, I think those are the most exciting times, right? To try something new, even if on the surface people are kind of questioning you. Go for it.
And as I mentioned, I'm from the Office of Research and Partnerships. Just to confess, I did some research on you because I'm good at research. But I did understand and I did read that you, I believe this last year, that you did the commencement address at your alma mater that you mentioned. And the topic was 5 ways to approach a problem, which I found to be very interesting. So one of the ways that you had mentioned was combining data and imagination. So can you kind of explain to us what that means?
Absolutely. So yes, that was just about a year ago where I had the honor of delivering the commencement speech, and it felt like sort of a full circle moment. But one of the principles, and it was an approach to solving a problem, because WPI is largely an engineering school, so problem solving felt like a good theme to set the speech. But I've been a big believer of this notion of combining data, call it science, and imagination, going way back in my career. Because the biggest breakthroughs, the biggest innovations, they don't come from a spreadsheet, they don't come from a PowerPoint deck. That is the grounding you need, but it's what you do with it to envision, different things. And I, often say too that someone's gut is really a product of all that stuff that's in there, but what can come out is a big new idea. And, and often that comes with some level of risk, and I think that's what makes it exciting. I mean, even my own career, as we were just talking about, there was levels of risk every step of the way, but every time it's like, okay, looking back, it all makes sense. So the data side, I'm a big data person. I'm an engineer. I love numbers. So that's always important, right? This is not being reckless or not paying attention to what's right in front of you. That sort of sets the foundation. But the imagination part says what's possible. And in fact, we just held our Global Leadership Summit a few weeks ago outside of San Francisco in Half Moon Bay. And we brought our top 250 leaders together from around the world. And one of the key messages was, let's reimagine what's possible. And if I look at, throughout my career, I can give you many examples. I can give you a lot of examples too, by the way, that didn't work, and failures, like drinks on the Starbucks menu that are no longer there. So, but you gotta be out there, you gotta be trying. But, a couple examples, I'll pick one from, I guess, each big chapter during my Starbucks time. So for a big chunk of that time, I led the beverage category. Olden probably remembers me bringing all kinds of crazy drinks in and tasting all kinds of things. But one of the beverages I launched early in my career there was the pumpkin spice latte. But the real story behind it was, I had a few team members, and they were doing research. It's interesting you brought that up, doing focus groups and concept studies, and they were testing. We were saying, okay, we want to introduce a fall beverage. This is back in the late 90s. So they did this research and came to me, and they said, okay, well, here's the 5 beverages we tested, and the 3 chocolate ones won. This pumpkin spice latte idea is kind of sort of in the dead last position. I'm like, okay, and I was kind of hoping for the pumpkin spice latte to win. But then when you looked inside the data, it's like, well, of course chocolate won. People are familiar with that. They had never envisioned a pumpkin spice latte, so I said, okay, that sounds kind of disgusting. You're putting pumpkin pie in my latte? No. But it's like, what I saw in there was like, oh, they think it's really unique. So let's make a drink that they're gonna love. And we did, and we launched. We probably ran out of pumpkin sauce, I'm sure, at some point along the way. And I think decades now making it sort of become iconic. It even has its acronym, the PSL. But had we not tried, and you also asked the question, what's the worst that could have happened? The worst that would have happened is it wouldn't have worked. It'd be a seasonal beverage, and it went with all the rest of them that never worked along the way. So that's one example. Fast forward to Kohl's, that was a very different situation where this was about a turnaround, reimagining what was possible. Yes, as part of that, as was mentioned, we had to become an omni-channel retailer, so we built a $6 billion e-commerce business, but the stores were still a huge part of what we needed to do to drive relevancy. So it was about bringing in refreshed brands, new brands, but one of the big unexpected moves is we forged a partnership with one of our biggest competitors, which was Amazon. And Amazon was having a massive disruptive force across all of retail, and it was hurting us and everybody else. And so the question is, okay, if you can't beat them, join them. And this whole idea of how do you use the footprint of the store differently to drive traffic in. And so, we saw our own returns coming into the store. It's like, well, what if we could have returns as a service for others? And, the biggest e-commerce retailer out there was Amazon. So we ended up testing a few things, by the way, including this, not knowing what was going to work. But we launched it, and it was a real value add for consumers to be able to, bring their return in instead of packaging it up and going to a UPS and all that. You just bring it in unpackaged. And we had to build the system to do that. Okay, one last example on this. I'll go to current state, Levi's. One of my funnest examples, I think, on data and imagination. So I am a couple months into becoming CEO. And, you know, we're plotting our course on denim, head to toe denim lifestyle. By the way, this is all Levi's. These are our new blue tab, Japanese denim, if you're curious. So we're doing, you know, we're plotting our course, denim lifestyle, DTC, etc. Well, we get a whisper in our ear that a big celebrity performer artist is going to name a song after us. And we're like, what? Oh my God. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm 2 months into being a CEO, like this is impossible. And lo and behold, it's Beyonce, who names a song, Levi's Jeans. How many people have heard that Levi's Jeans song? It's amazing. Listen to it now. But I mean, you know, it just speaks to the brand, right? Like how many brands have a song that, you know, are named after them? It was incredible. And so sort of the science part was, okay, we're gonna get a lot of impressions, that's gonna be great, we can talk about it on social media. The imagination part was, what if this can be a bigger thing? And would Beyonce want to do something with us? And, you know, oftentimes you can make lots of phone calls, as I have, you know, ask questions, get a lot of no's, but on occasion you get a yes. And so Kenny Mitchell, our chief marketing officer, and I got together and said, well, why don't we call her team? And we called her team and we started a conversation and we got to a yes. And then we ended up doing a really big campaign with her last year that was hugely successful and helped actually accelerate our women's business, which grew double digits last year.
Amazing stories, right?
But I think that to me that the lesson in here is it is the data and imagination, but also like, you know, you have to put yourself out there. Ask the question. Don't be afraid of getting a no. I've had plenty of no's, but I've gotten a few yeses, and those are the ones that make all the difference.
Great. I actually kind of want to pivot just a little bit and ask something more personal. And what it is that when you were talking about the jungle gym, you know, when you're reaching out and you're grabbing onto that next bar, there's that sense of uncertainty. How do you deal with uncertainty? And how did you transition from one to the other? If you could give us maybe some more personal insights to that.
Sure. You know, we all face uncertainty, right? It doesn't matter if you're a CEO or you're a barista in a Starbucks or anybody in between. And I first start with, it's all about the people. It really is all about the people. And, you know, for me, it's always been surrounding myself with the best people and me being there for leaders and colleagues who need it when they're going through a hard time, when it is uncertain times, etc. You know, that, back to my Starbucks days, I mean, yeah, it was 20 years of my life, but, you know, very early on, one of the principles at Starbucks was all around servant leadership, right? And the role of a leader is to serve others and not the other way around, right? It's about empathy, it's about humility, it's about listening. And, you know, that sounds like, well, that's what we should be as human beings, right? But sometimes I think there's a belief when you become a leader, like those things go away and you have to have all the answers and, you know, you can be the tough person. Doesn't mean you make tough decisions. I make lots of tough decisions, but I always try to do it through the lens of empathy and caring about people. And so through those times, whether I'm the person reaching out for the rung, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, in big decisions, I rarely make decisions alone. I'm always bringing in team members and asking their opinion. Doesn't mean everybody always agrees, and I know sometimes the decision's gonna be with me, but I wanna make sure I'm fully informed as I make those calls. But then importantly, when people need me, I wanna be there for them. And, you know, that was really, for me, one of the, I mentioned earlier, but one of the most defining moments for, I mean, all of us, of course, was the global pandemic and how that changed the world. And I don't know anybody who wasn't touched by it in some way, and so much tragedy and what have you. For me, you know, here I was, the leader of a huge company with 80, 90,000 employees dispersed all over in stores and in distribution centers. And when that landed early March of 2020, there was no playbook, right? So, but I went back to my principles of, you know, number one, it's all about the people. So how do I make sure that they feel like they are cared for? I couldn't promise it was gonna be okay, but what I could do is I could communicate, I could create community, and I could provide clarity. And so literally we had to create an IT system so that I could be on video with the whole company, including store members with their phones, so I could communicate literally every week in terms of what was happening. I mean, for many, it was what they were getting as their source of truth with even kind of what's going on in the world. So but to be there, for them to see a familiar face. And then as parts of the country, we had to shut our stores, and that was, oh my gosh, like cash registers closed, you don't know when those are opening up, so that was pretty scary. One of the best decisions in a hotel in New York, because I was in New York when all this happened, was with our CFO, and it's like, we saw this coming, it's like, tap the revolver, get the cash now. And I'll never forget, like, we were passing in the hallway. Sometimes it's more about timing than it is like, we're gonna think, no, go get it, like, because we don't know if everybody's doing the same thing. But anyhow, as we had to close our stores, all of that, but as the country started opening in pockets, the other thing I wanted to do was get out there and masked up and what have you, and be with our team members. And it was just really important to be present. And it was, they won't remember me for whatever the strategies we did during that time, but I want them to remember that I really cared and that I tried to be as present as I could.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that's very personal, and also it looks like that in what I would call an unconventional career choice, that you really care about the people. And that is extremely important. And thank you for sharing about servant leadership, because we need to hear that more and more. Because there's always stresses that are happening and decisions that have to be made. But as long as you keep that servant leadership mentality and you care about your people, that's where you have success. Another kind of more personal question as far as confidence. You come across as extremely confident. Where does that come from?
Well, good, I guess. Where does it come from? That's a hard question to answer. I just think over the years, I suppose over 35 years, you have so many learnings along the way that it gives you, it puts you in a position to do the next thing, right? And if the next thing isn't right, then you pivot and you go to the next rung of that jungle gym. For me, I will say that some of the experiences we've talked about, whether they've been facing really tough moments, making big decisions, having a product launch that didn't work, having failures. Literally, I've had a few things where, like, some, early days where it's like, oh my God, like, this thing really didn't work. This beverage really stunk it up, and am I gonna get fired tonight? That didn't happen, luckily, but
I do like the pumpkin latte.
okay, good, yes. But trust me, for every one of those, there was 5 that didn't work. But I think because when you've had that, or go to a big one, right? Go to Kohl's when we're in the pandemic, the cash register's closed, we have a little money in the bank, and I'm thinking, am I gonna be the CEO of Kohl's when the company goes bankrupt? Because our stores are gonna be so closed so long. You envision like that was a scenario, and it was happening. If you remember in 2020, there were many retailers, big name retailers that were filing bankruptcy. And it was like, luckily we had a strong balance sheet, we tapped the revolver, we got the cash. But I'm like, if our stores are closed for a year, like, what is this gonna look like? And that was scary. That was scary, but we got through it. We actually emerged stronger. We were able to, pivot into some strategies. But when you have that thing, it builds your confidence, but I think more than anything, it gives you the confidence for the next thing. And if you've gone through that, you remember back like, oh wait, we were able to do this, I was able to do that. And so, yeah, uncertainty, I don't know exactly how this is gonna unfold. Nowhere near what we're talking about with the pandemic, but the tariff situation, right, that's happened over the last year. And when reciprocal tariffs were announced a year ago, and some of the big numbers, like, we ran the math on our P&L and we're like, uh-oh, like if that happens, that's gonna be really tricky. And you hear people who are all over the place on level of panic or whatever, and it's like, nope, let's be calm, let's be clear, let's get the facts down, let's create a tariff task force. And so creating that order where sometimes like things can be chaotic, I think is really important. So to your question, I think it's just as you've gone through all of these experiences, and I am a believer, the toughest ones are the ones that give you that confidence. Not the wins, not the big home runs. It's the ones that you have to work hard for.
Thank you so much. I kind of want to think about our students here in the room. They potentially want some advice from you. What kind of advice could you give them on some of the lessons you learned in your experiences?
Yeah. Well, we've touched on a few, but I just think, number one, don't set any limits on yourself. I mean, truly, like if you want something, go for it. It may not be a straight road, or as they say, it's not always a direct line between 2 points, as I like to say, but it might be a journey, it might be a jungle gym, you might have to pivot different places, but go after it. Here I am, I'm a chemical engineer, and I'm leading one of the most iconic fashion brands in the world. Like, and it can be for any of you sitting in the room, right? Any of these students. Now, it may mean that you might have to do some things, because the other thing I would say is, maybe it's my main upbringing, but I'm a believer in hard work, in grit, as I think Chris said. And so, you have to work for it. Like, this stuff isn't necessarily handed over, and it's a competitive world out there, what have you, but, don't limit yourself, work hard. I also think it's important to find joy, and to find joy with your work, to find it in your personal life, to make sure, and hey, and at times, like, that comes in ebbs and flows, and sometimes you work harder than others, and you make sacrifices where you need to, but I think it's also really important to not have life pass you by, as they say, to actually be present and be in the moment, and sounds cliche, but enjoy the journey. And I feel fortunate, by the way, it has been tough along the way. I have made sacrifices. Again, I've got 2 amazing kids, an incredible husband, but we had to make trade-offs along the way. It's me being kind of the primary supporter or provider of the family.
In mentioning your family, again, it could be that the students in our room are wondering, how do you balance, professional as well as personal ambition? Maybe you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah. I don't know that it's ever balanced. I kind of just view my whole life as like one big, ecosystem, where and how I get to enjoy different parts of my life, because I love my work. I walk in every day and sort of have to pinch myself that I get to work at Levi's with its history, heritage, and with the opportunity to drive it to like new heights. Like it's unbelievable. So I get a lot of joy out of that. There are tough times, there are tough decisions, what have you, but overall it's amazing, and I have an incredible family, and I make sure that I have room in my time to do the things that are important to me, to help me be better in all these other roles, as a CEO, as a mom, as a spouse, and for me, and it's different for everybody, but I get really filled up on working out in the morning. I have a very structured morning routine. I was telling the students about this morning, and I get up quite early, and I have my coffee, and I read my headlines, maybe do a little work, and then I go to the gym. And like every hotel I've seen around the world, like my assistant knows there has to be a gym because even if it's some random hour during the day, and it's much more about, that's how I get my energy and my fuel. And I'm a big outdoor person. That's really important to me. So I love to hike. Living in Northern California is amazing because we have some of the most spectacular hiking around. And I go on vacations in the Dolomites last year with my husband and my daughter joined us. So you have to create space for it. You got to schedule it. Sometimes for me, I schedule like a year in advance, but I'm like, nope, we are going to the Dolomites. We're going to be with our daughter, and and I commit to that. And I think it's really important. You don't lose sight of it.
Okay. I do have one last question before we're going to let you go. Can you tell us a bit about some of your goals for 2026?
So, goals for 26. Well, I say professionally, I'm going to hit our numbers, tell that to Naeem all the time. And I'm going to continue our path and building this next chapter for Levi's, which is moving the company from being known just as a jeans brand, still going to be the top jeans in the world, but also a head-to-toe, as we call it, denim lifestyle apparel brand, evolving the company into be a best-in-class DTC retailer. So we've got a great strategy. It's working. We had a great year last year. The business has momentum. The brand, Beyonce, Shabuzi, just had a great Super Bowl a few weeks ago, so the brand has great momentum. But, for me, and I mentioned I was just up in front of our top 250 leaders a few weeks ago, and I closed out the summit by saying, I wanted them all to sort of close their eyes and envision what their goals were 3-5 years out. When they look back, what do they believe they would have wanted to achieve? And I said, for me, I do want to take this company to new heights. Financially, yes, but more from the culture, the values, and what we stand for, and what we offer to consumers all over the world. And the most important thing for me is I look back 3 to 5 years is to make sure that, the next generation of leaders that I get to work with are flourishing and will be ready someday to, continue to help this 170-year enterprise thrive.
Congratulations on being Executive of the Year. We here at Eller are very pleased to have you. Let's give her a round of applause.
As we come to a close, I'd like to thank Michelle. As we come to a close, I'd like to thank Michelle and Linda for such a great, engaging, and insightful conversation. Thank you both. I'd like to offer one final congratulations to Michelle on this well-deserved recognition and extend our sincere appreciation to our stable sponsors for their support in making today's event possible. Before I go Cats. Purdue versus UFA. I'm rooting for UFA. And to all of you, thank you for joining us today to celebrate and honor Michelle. We are very grateful for your presence and your continued support. Thank you.